Hi there, I'm Raya from Active Health Clinic, and today I'm going to speak to you about what considerations we may need in place for things like forward planning. Okay, now I assume everyone knows what forward planning is. Forward planning is basically thinking ahead, looking at things ahead of time, and forward planning your things in advance, but not just your commitments and your activities, but forward planning your health related needs as well. So we do have plenty of videos on forward planning, so I'm going to breeze past that point. And I'm going to ask you a few questions. So when it comes to forward planning specifically, not only do we need to be aware of what commitments we have, but we also need to have the considerations around those commitments specifically. So the first thing to look at is what triggers are involved. Are there physical triggers, emotional triggers, cognitive, social, environmental, all of the above? So what triggers will then help you identify what do you need to do to recharge. Now, again, we've got lots of videos on recharge, but we really want to look at in what way is your body going to be experiencing challenge, and in what ways can you best support your body through those challenges. So we look at the idea of what triggers are upcoming and what recharge modalities are going to help specifically. Now, another thing to consider is what kind of recovery time. Now, if we're forward planning, especially something like a specific time of year like the festive season, you may have more going on, which means you may need to look at how soon you have one activity after another one. Now, why that's important is, do you have enough recovery time prior to doing that task again? Because if the answer is no, then you're experiencing maybe a flare-up on top of a flare-up and experiencing more symptoms. So therefore you might have more triggers, or you might have less accessible recharge activities. So looking at your recovery window between activities and forward planning, having enough time is really, really important. Okay. Now, the next thing is to look at what do you need? Now, I know that is super, super obvious when it comes to forward planning, but what is it that you need that is going to help your body through this particular challenge and to support you being as minimally symptomatic in response to this activity or this period of time? So it's looking at what do you need. Now, that might be having a hospital bag, which is having everything you may need. That may be having a drink bottle on hand at all times. That may be forward planning non-perishable snacks so you can keep them in your car or in your bag. Or that may be having a new TV show as a comfort to go to recharge between particular activities or tasks. So looking at what do you need and thinking of these ahead of time. Now, again, I know that sounds super obvious, but when we are in a flare-up or a setback, our problem-solving ability isn't as good and our symptoms are quite heightened. So it is actually more difficult at that point in time to identify what we need. So if we actually do that ahead of time, before the problem is a problem, then we actually have those strategies when we need them. Kind of like we have the reminder in a car to tell us that we're low on fuel to prevent the fact of getting to the point of having no fuel, for instance. So looking at what you need is actually going, okay, can I make sure that I have forward planned for a time of an empty tank or a low tank? Okay. Now, the next thing around forward planning, especially around bigger periods of time where you may be busier. So this might be the end of a semester or a term. This may be around certain festivities or times of year. So the next question is, who or what can help? Now, what can help may be those strategies and those things that you need. Who may be, is there anyone that can drive you to your appointment? Is there anyone that can do a little bit of meal prep for you? Or is there anyone that can fill your drink bottle for you? So it's going who or what. Now, this is what we call leverage. If anyone or anything else can do the task for you instead of you using your very limited energy on these things, then that is what we want to try and organize to do. Now, that isn't always possible, but in a time where we need to forward plan, we can look at the idea of, especially with those bigger events, who or what can help so that where less energy is going into those potentially smaller activities that other people can do or other things can do, and more energy is going into the actual activity itself, or more importantly, that recovery time, so that you're bouncing back from it as quick as possible. Okay. So this isn't all inclusive of forward planning. There are many, many, many other considerations around this, and it will be dependent on the person. It will be dependent on their conditions and their needs, but also the time of year and the reason that we are forward planning too. So as a brief overview, forward planning, we need to make sure that we're thinking ahead. We need to make sure that we're acknowledging what our triggers are and our recharge strategies may be. We want to be aware of what our recovery time window may be. What do we need, or who or what can support us during that time as well. So that's potentially a lot of information, and it's just really important time to consider what our forward planning needs may be so that we can execute them as best as possible. There is no such thing as perfect, but doing the best we can support us just that little bit better than if we didn't have them. So we like to talk about the 1%ers. If that helps you feel 1% less crappy, or these things accumulate to 10% of your day or your recovery looks different from that activity itself, then they are worth doing. So the little things may not have that direct gratification of having done them, but collectively together they may be more impactful, okay? So I hope this all makes sense. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below, or if you have any other strategies, because there's many, about forward planning, feel free to comment below, because I guarantee someone else needs to hear that today. So have a lovely day, and we will see you soon.